Good morning. My name is Gennady Kravtsov. On behalf of the MROL workshop chairs, I want to thank you all for joining us today at the ICTERI conference. 3 sections are planned: technologies, models, and electronic resources in education, augmented virtual reality and immersive technologies in education, and cloud technologies in open learning and research. Each report has 30 minutes, 20-25 minutes for presentation, and 5-10 minutes for discussion. First report predicts students' academic performance based on the cluster analysis method. Now, welcome, presenter. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Elena. I am an assistant professor of the Department of Computer Science, Brezov State Technical University, Mariupol, Ukraine. I am glad to take part in this conference. Together with my colleague Olga Pronina, we offer a report on the topic predicting students' academic performance based on their cluster analysis method. In the modern world, specialists with a high level of knowledge and skills play an important role. In order to obtain such specialists and integrate approach in needs, one of the stages of which is obtained a high educational. The main task of university is to educate students in their specialty. To accomplish this task, high quality education is required. One of the most important components of the quality of educational is the success of educational. The following stages of monitoring the success of training can be decisions: monitoring the flow of applicants, monitoring progress and other activities, monitoring the success of future professional activities. In this work, the object in the first and second stage of monitoring and its indicators, the results of extensive examination and students' performance, the learning process. At this stage of study in a higher educational institution, the most important stage of knowledge testing in the assessment by teachers. Currently, in almost all areas of human activity, there is a general need for study of statistical data. Of the one of agent and practical demanded task of the data analysis in the problem of drawing objects into comparative homogeneous groups, which are called clusters. Cluster analysis so takes into account the temporal dynamics of academic performance, which will make it possible to more fully real the picture of the quality of educational. An in-depth analysis of the data reveals the key strengths in the success of educational. After it makes it possible to influence the quality of the educational process by making optimal management decision. Therefore, cluster analysis was chosen to this work. Scientific experience in studying the relations between pre-university testing results and future success in the university has been accumulated in the United States. The many universities take into account the results of standardized tests such as SAT, Scholastic Assessment Test, or ACTS, American College Testing. The authors found the relationships between the high school general education score and college graduation out in strong and consistent. In Ukraine, at present, ICTERI criteria by which the ranking of applicant is carried out. This simulation of points obtained in external independent testing in several subjects is used. The list of subjects from 3 or 4 extends examination for each specialty in determined by the rule of admission to a higher educational institution. Many authors in Ukraine are also studying the influence to the results of general assessment of external independent testing on predicting the potential of freshmen in order to apply a different table approach by the teacher. Example for this slide. For identity the patterns in educational data, it is irrelevant to use data mining methods. The authors use different classification algorithms. Decision tree, random forest, sequential minimal optimization, logistic regression, Cummins algorithm, Scanner-Neighbor algorithm, neural network, hybrid algorithm, cluster analysis. So a large number of resources are engaged in the issue to predicting students' performance. At the same time, the authors use different attributes for forecasting: cluster, grades, examination, final exams, behavior, attendance, and more. Also, the authors carry out grouping and classification according to different parameters. Therefore, it is difficult to compare the studies of different authors since each study has its own purpose. Nevertheless, all research is the area of predicting students' performance is relevant and important. Today there is still no undefined approach, so research needs to be continued. The goal with work is to predict students' performance based on the method of cluster analysis. So this a number of tasks are considered. It is necessary to form a mathematical model that will allow predicting the level of student performance based on the data on external independent testing and controls activities. It is also necessary to conduct modeling, training, testing, and evaluation the results. The formal grading model is presented by the formulas that you see on the slide. The detailed description of the model is given in the article. The resulting mathematical model can be used to calculate the rating of each student. As further action, students can be grouped according to their results into clusters. The general performance of students can be conditionally divided into 3 clusters. Uncertificatory, which corresponds to an insufficient level of knowledge; good and other, which correspond to a sufficient level of knowledge; excellent, which correspond to a high level of knowledge. Of this basic, of which the forecasting of student success take place, with the possibility of continuous recalculating of rating to check the success of the forecast. To group data into cluster, we need to define their structure. In the work, a method for combining into cluster has chosen near-neighbor rules to determine the distance between clusters. The data set, which was learned for testing, contains the results of the first certification, the second certification, and the results of session with students of the Facultet Информационных технологий, Department of Computer Science, Prozovsky State Technical University. The model provides for an increase in the criteria for educational evaluating editing indicators, namely grades of laboratory work, practical work, independent work, test, abstracts, and the other. For gradually of results, a self-organization coherent maps then was built. For each significant characteristic, the interpretation of the results in show in figure 1 on this slide. To construct a cluster analysis, signification indicators were defined: semester, group, student, subject, type of final controls, assessment. For each indicator, it's necessary to carry out the splitting variant. For an example of splitting for the KM 19 groups, Priazovsky State Technical University is shown in figure 1. The distance between contrast clusters and regression error matrix was calculated. To test the developed model, a two-stage study was carried out. In the first stage, the connection between the results obtained during external independent testing and phase distribution by score was checked. In the second stage, a comparison was made between the predicted grades of students and their real grades obtained during training. The first stage of model validation. For the analysis, the data of students enrolled in the specialty computer science of the educational computer science in 2018-2020, they are selected. The data of the distribution in the first subject of independent testing is shown in table 1. Descriptive statistical data of the results of external independent testing in the subject of 85 students who entered the Department of Computer Science are shown in table 2. Table 3 shows the coefficient of correlation between the mask of external independent testing and mathematical discipline, high mathematicals, discrete mathematicals in the first year. It was necessary to analyze the depends of the role by the level of training and not by individual disciplines. Table 4 shows the correlation coefficient between the results of the first year, the average grade of the certificate, and the average score of external independent testing for each student. The correlation according to the average score is in higher than with the average score of the certificate. This due to the fact that the grades of the certification are given in educational institutions of different levels by different teachers and in clusters of different classes of different profiles. Also, for the 2018 students in the introduction, the correlation of success was assessed not only for one first course, but for success in 2 years of study. The results showed that the correlation of academic performance for 2 years with average grade of the certificate is 0.835, and with the average score of external independent testing is 0.73. It shows that students who did well in school also do well at university, and students who did not develop their personality and develop at school also performance at university. Conclusions. One of the tools is the data analysis and forecasting in cluster analysis. The work used cluster analysis to predict the progress of students during their studies and at the higher educational institution. According to obtained results, marks from external independent assessment can explain the variance in success in the first years and a number of compulsory subjects. The factory affecting students' performance in information technology and mass disciplines are similar in contract to humanitarian subjects. The value of the root mean square error demonstrates the accuracy of the future forecasting on the test sample due to insignificant deviation from the real data. Analyzing the results, regularity was revealed that the general level of passing the summer exams is higher than the winter ones. The results obtained confirm the edX of the developed model and can be used in the future to analyze and predict the progress of students of any higher educational institution in Ukraine. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Lena, for useful presentation, useful for practice. Have any question?
I have one question. Finally, I'm Valeria, and I'd like to ask you, why do you think the cluster analysis is vital nowadays? Vital, important.
Excuse me, the question is very quiet. You can...
Я не услышал. Можно подойти.
Should I repeat?
Да, да.
Okay, so, Lena, why do you think the cluster analysis is vital nowadays? Important. Important, yeah.
Thank you for your questions. If I understand you right, the cluster analysis is very important for data mining, especially for educational data mining. This my presentation, I ask for this slide. Many authors now studying the cluster analysis in their works.
Okay, thank you a lot.
Have any questions?
May I ask a question? Do you hear me well? May I ask? Well, okay. Maybe if you open in your presentation the conclusions.
No.
And
Yes.
in number 4, you noticed that the factors that influence student performance were revealed.
No.
May you explain us what are these factors? The factors affecting student performance in information technology and math discipline, let it be. But what are these factors?
Thank you for your questions. in our work, the research for affecting student performance, the laboratory works, practical works, the exams grades, the and other works in during his learning. You answer your questions. Are you answer your
How
questions?
should we
Я забыл включить.
how should we influence these factors just to increase the results? What shall we do to increase the results, to make the performance better?
One moment. In our research, we in our research, including the marks of teachers and automatic information technology in our university Moodle. If you understand right.
Okay.
Any questions?
No.
I have one question. What's your opinion about can a cluster model for assessing performance be used in distance learning system with rating?
Thank you for question. We used in the work, the method of combine into cluster was chosen the nearest neighbor rule, single link method, to determine the distance between clusters.
Thank you. Any questions?
No.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience.
Now we next step, designing a tool for economic students' digital competence management measurement by Елена Красота.
Good morning. And now my presentation test.
We see contrast, very contrast vision. Can you
Just a moment. We have some techniques mistakes. Now we can fix this problem. Just a moment. Она не запускается.
we see you.
Еще пару минут.
Very contrast. Okay. You can begin. Okay. Is a presentation?
Yes, I have one question. Do you see this presentation?
Yes.
Yes, very nice, very nice. Okay, just a moment. Do you see my presentation? Say me please once more.
Yes.
Yes, very nice. Okay, and right now let's begin our presentation. Theme of our presentation, designing a tool for economic student digital competence measurement. And please, the first slide. I am glad to greet all participants of the workshop. Thank you for the opportunity to present the result of our joint research on the topic designing a tool for economic student digital competence measurement. In my speech, I will try to display the main points of our work, namely relevance and purpose of research, apps for economic students, the results of survey, organizational and pedagogical conditions for developing economic student digital competence, approach to determining the level of digital competence, competence framework for economic student digital competence measurement, the result of expert evaluation of the framework. At the present stage of society development and different transformation process, the need for improvement, ensuring the proper level of professional training of economic specialists is of great importance. The modern economist is one of the main participants of the digital economy, the fourth industrial revolution, Industry 4.0, which lays a number of tasks and functions: analytics, forecasting, strategic planning, financial accounting, reporting, etc. In this regard, the importance of information and communication technologies increases significantly as they facilitate the automation and optimization of economic processes, apply effective management method and economic activity. According to different research, today about 90% of professions require at least basic ICT skills. At the same time, the majority of respondents are convinced of need to form digital skills for specialists in their professions, and some of them claim to be lacking these skills. Economic students' training should be aimed at the development of topical competence, including the ability to apply modern and professional apps. In this case, an important element we consider the introduction of an appropriate competence framework. It allows to determine the goals, tasks, content blocks at the beginning of the development of educational programs, and to compare the result of learning with the given standards, entering the corresponding adjustments in the educational process. The purpose of the article is to generalize apps for general and professional purpose necessary to be used in economic student training, to design a tool, namely framework, for economic student digital competence measurement. During training, it's important to ensure that the learning content corresponds to the professional context. The application of specialized software, economically oriented information systems, allows bringing economic students to a deeper understanding of process in the enterprise, to exercise in implementing various financial and analytical operations, data processing, accounting, reporting, and more. According to the general approach, we distinguish two main groups of apps: general and professional purposes. The first group includes applications intended and used to solve a range of different information tasks: text, table, and graphic processors, data management system, network tools, etc. In the second group includes apps that allow solving professional tasks within a separate subject area. Among the main types of professional purpose apps for economists, we summarized modern tools by their essence, functionality, and relevance for enterprises, as you can see on this slide. Thus, we have grouped apps in several categories: tools of accounting for small, medium, and large enterprises, tools of automation of workplaces, financial analytical system, and so on. Application of applied professional purpose apps allows simulating future professional activities of economists through modeling of economic objects, providing opportunities for solving real professional tasks, implementation of analysis, preparation of statistics, business plans, and reports, the performance of professional, scientific, and economics creative tasks, etc. Being a staff of Poltava State Agrarian University, Ukraine, we surveyed students of our institution to find out several overall levels of satisfaction with teaching disciplines, identify the main problems, advantages, and needs in process of developing their digital competence. It should be noted that to ensure the proper level of information, teaching, and methodological support of our university, a system of measures has been introduced. Information, teaching, and methodological support meets licensing requirements, has relevant content, takes into account, and attracts the functionality of modern ICT. Within our survey, we propose students choose the main features necessary for the economist's professional competitiveness. As you can see, students attribute the ability to use modern ICT at a high level to priority characteristics of economist's professional competitiveness. Then we offered students to evaluate their level of competence on the use of modern ICTs and apps in future professional activities. The vast majority of respondents appreciate themselves as a confident user, which can work with many types of apps and master easily informatic disciplines in the institution. Besides, students were invited to assess their experience of using various apps, both for general and professional purposes. The majority of students are confident in using email services, electronic social networks, messengers, and office apps. This result was not a surprise, since students systematically use these apps to carry out educational tasks and communication with Educator. As we can see, many professional apps that are in demand in the market are not familiar to students, and this needs to be fixed. Almost 90% of students responded that they need to increase their capability for the use of various apps for work in the economic industry. Given this, the introduction of approach to evaluating digital competence, the definition of students' gaps in a learning process with adjustment of educational process is a time. We believe that for future economists, it is important not only to be able to use the professional apps, but also to be able to compare different apps, their functional characteristics, to choose those that will resolve the professional tasks most optimally. This can be achieved by implementing a range of conditions. 1. To provide a sufficient level of technical support. 2. To provide an organic implementation of ICT at various stages of the educational process. 3. To provide a system of measures at the level of educational institution that would encourage the participants of educational process to increase their digital competence. Future economists should be able to act in competition and professional risk, be prepared for lifelong updating and improving their knowledge and skills. The development of digital competence as a complex and integrated characteristics is a continuous process which does not end after passing a certain training course. At the same time, there is an important question: how can we measure and evaluate the level of development of economic student digital competence? We analyzed the main approach to determining the level of specialist digital competence development. The field of framework application is quite wide, from policy development and strategic planning to designing curricula as well as evaluation, monitoring, etc. An important function of frameworks is the opportunity to make sure that the person obtained the competencies necessary for full participation in modern social economic processes. Taking into account the above approaches, we have developed a project of the framework for economic student digital competence measurement. The framework presents the abilities that form components of this competence: working with data, communication, content development, security, problem solving, indicators, and development levels. Components from 1 to 4 are of more general content. Then component 5, problem solving, relates directly to the professional activity of an economist. This component can be specified under a particular specialization within which the economic student training is conducted. This framework is presented in our article. The expert evaluation reveals the expediency of introducing our framework in the process of economic student training. The expert group included 12 people of different occupation. The evaluation was carried out according to each of the 5 components of digital components. The vast majority of experts evaluated the framework positively. The presented framework for economic student digital competence measurement can serve as a basic for developing a narrower framework for specific economic or related specialties. Further research should be directed to experimental confirmation of the effectiveness of the developed framework and methodology for the economic student digital competence development. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Liz.
At first, we consider some questions in chat. Do you see, Elena, do you see questions?
Just a moment.
In chat.
Yes, here is about the first question. Whom do you mean when talking about economic student? This is raise a yes, a broad concept. I agree with you, of course, with my colleague. And the concept of economic student or future economists is rather broad in content and covers specialists in several specialties. For example, in Ukraine, future economists include students studying the following specialties as economics, international economics relations, accounting and taxation, finance, banking, and insurance, marketing, then what else? Trade and stock exchange activity, and others. But all of them, of course, we can generalize as one branch of knowledge, namely economics. That's why we speak about economics student. And the next one, how did you choose the expert evaluation of your framework? Yes, thank you for your question. And when we selected the expert, we took into account such requirements. If they were of essence specificity of future economist training, if they have practical experience in using modern digital tools and apps in professional activity. And we try to involve experts from different spheres. So we involve professors, docents, specialists, graduate students, of course, and professionals from bank and business. Okay. As free license, we use here is different programs. For example, for teaching accounting and for teaching different finance disciplines.
Anyone have any questions?
Yes, I have one question. Do you hear me?
Yes, not very good, but yes, okay.
I can move closer to the microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
Could you please name the main features necessary for economist professional competitiveness?
The main feature for competitiveness. Okay. Mm-hmm. For example, we have as general and special competences.
Thank you so much.
And as a general competence, it's, for example, working team or by own self, professionally, to accumulate and to provide information. And special competences, we use them especially for the specialty. It's studying of essence, object and analyze of format statement, methodological tools in accounting, and analyze the international system of accounting according to the international standards of accounting, and etc.
Thank you.
Next question.
Can you hear me or should I?
Yes.
I want to ask you, how can students improve their digital competence?
In modern life is impossible without, of course, without digital technology. That's why it seems to me, I said that students use different social networks, different programs, and in their learning and outside, of course. That's why modern youth is very progressive in this question, it seems to me.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any questions?
No.
I have a question. What your opinion about is modification of curricula is required to develop and increase the digital competences of future economists?
Of course, we have curriculums that let us to prepare modern specialists. That's why there are many special disciplines what connected with the ICT different competences and with ICT disciplines.
Okay, and last question, actual question about factors or indicators to measure digital competences.
Of course, our specialists, our graduates, they have almost, I don't know exactly about percentage, but many our specialists work according their specialty and use their knowledge, what they got in our establishment, professional knowledge.
Thank you. Questions is over. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And we have last report by Olga Mirkova.
Сейчас нажмите на последнюю кнопку. Да, сразу же. И я еще должен саму ее расшарить. Момент. Да. Сейчас. Все, отлично. Все, можете начинать.
Hello, my name is Olga Mirkova and I'm Associate Professor at Kherson State University. And the title of our research is about electronic textbook mathematical tasks programming first steps. Our study is done by researchers of Department of Informatics, Software Engineering, and Economical Cybernetics of Kherson State University under the guidance of Professor Lvov. So the modern period of social development is characterized as an era of widespreading of information technologies in every part of human activity. And the actual problem is IT specialist training. And the concept of STEM education in Ukraine notes that a critical factor in innovative production of the developed state is the progressively growing deficit of high-tech experts who are able to complex scientific and engineering activity, and from the other side, decreasing the students' interest to study natural mathematical disciplines. And this document holds complete critical analysis of situation that may take place during teaching nature and IT disciplines at high schools, also concepts on how to improve students' education in this sphere. And also the document says that STEM is oriented education method is one of the most important ways of developing nature and math student studies. And we know that acronym STEM determines special features of didactics, which idea can be found out by mixing multidisciplinary practice-oriented approaches for studying nature and math disciplines. and leading specialists in the field of IT and IT education know that the current level of IT development is increasingly used complex tools for automating the designing of software systems. Also in Ukraine, there are a lot of courses, schools, and academies whose specialization is to prepare human resources in a short period of time by studying the most actual problems of IT sphere, but at the same time ignoring basic aspects. And the students who have finished such educational centers can code in specific technologies, are not prepared for mathematical modeling of, in new case, technologies. And unfortunately, most software developing companies prefer such way. They allow students to teach one-way programmers fast and cheap. And the concept of STEM education offers modern education approach that puts basic preparing aspects that can harmonically combine with applications. And the electronic training manual, electronic textbooks mentions in our study combines both mathematical and programming training. And its main goal is to improve the education of school children and students in the field of mathematics and programming. The survey of scientific and education literature shows that market has a lot of teaching books and programming textbooks for students and pupils, and we are interested in electronic and paper formats that have tasks of Olympics level, along with their solving and code lines. Also thematic manuals in algorithmization and programming. So we made some short review, and the first of all, we will mention the books that are part of Golden Font of scientific and education literature. It is Algorithm Encyclopedia of Knuth in 7 volumes, Education Monograph of Dijkstra, the unique book of Bentley and Breath books. Also, according to its content, the electronic training manual is an elementary introduction to computer mathematics. So there are a lot of books in the most popular computer algebra systems such as Mathematica, Maple, and MathCat. Also, each computer algebra system contains a wide range of functions that solve mathematical tasks, as well as specialized programming language. But these programming systems are oriented towards specialists and should be studied by senior students, usually at master's degree. And their use for education purpose for school children and junior students also considering the methodological literature, and is very limited by technology of using enter condition and get an answer. Also, we analyze that there are a lot of books on sports programming, and Olympic movements also deserve special attention. Then the goals and tasks of the electronic textbook. The main goal is to improve the quality of training school children and junior students in ICT specialties. In universities, mathematics and fundamental programming. Also, the electronic training manual or textbook can be considered an introduction to computer algebra and kind of first steps in the study of methods and technologies for processing symbolic computations. Also, the main tasks of our study are to make content and level of pupils' math level more close to the university level. Also, prepare us training students for applied mathematics level. Also, the next one is significantly improves pupils' algorithm component in the process of programming and encouraging the learning of program languages, motivation. The next one is structure and content of textbooks. So the content and structure of the electronic training manual are aimed at achieving the goal and completing tasks. And so here you see the content of the manual. The first one is a forward, then tasks and algorithms of computer arithmetic, task and algorithm of computer algebra, different tasks, task for an independent solution, planning task, and conclusion and literature. Then the content here we have represents some examples of several tasks and guidelines for solving them. The numbering of tasks have been retained from the electronic training manual, and also the contents of modern algebra studying books dedicated to mathematics analysis and geometry the pupil use in schools have nothing to do with organization and programming. And the document should explain the contents of reformed education. Actually, we don't mention in the structural details of mathematical and programming education in colleges according to the STEM education. And we should expect basics of algorithmization and programming as a part of college education program. And taking that fact to attention that the manual provides a great amount of tasks that reveal some algorithm aspects of school algebraic tasks. Then, so you see task 2 factorial, task 2.1 and task 2.2. Then the next one. Electronic textbook programming mathematical problems for steps supports the current programming languages C++, Python, as well as Pascal. And it supports 3 languages, Ukrainian, Russian, English, and English it is a language of professional communication of IT specialists. Also, we plan, keeping the idea, the general core and the structure of the electronic textbooks, create or develop a system for its feeding and provide an opportunity to develop content for various groups of authors. Also, and general methodological guidance will support the overall direction of our development. Okay, so let's consider methodological aspects of using the textbook. One of the main disadvantages of existing electronic textbooks is the lack of instructions for solving programming problems. Our experience of teaching school children the basics of algorithmization and programming shows that without correct hints, solving simple program problems is ineffective. It is simply impossible to solve tasks of the Olympiad level of complexity in the process of initial training in the basic of algorithmization and programming without prompts. And also we present a 3-level structure of electronic textbooks: task, solution, instruction, and source code. And also you see an example, multiple roots of the cubic equation. You see that create a program that uses a guide cubic equation with integer coefficient determines whether there are roots of multiples. Also, the instructions for solving the task contain theoretical information for the mathematical model and description of the algorithm for solving the problem. And at the same time, the method of invariance for solving the problem is considered. And also, this algorithm for solving the task is presented in the form of program code in 3 program languages. So you see the slide presents the task method of invariance, sample of solution keys. So you can see cubic equation and so on. This is the solution of this task. Then the next slide. So it is also example method of invariance is continuation. And you see that the last relation is an invariant of the rules of multiplicity 2 for the reduced cubic equation, and it is satisfied if and only if the equation has a multiple roots. The algorithm for determining the existence of roots of multiplicity 2 checks the fulfillment of invariant and first and fourth formulas. So on this slide we see electronic textbook model. The third level of task statement is a short course from the authors of the manual. And here you see the user, future student, has the opportunity to open the corresponding programming system and to write task solution in this system. So you can see the level of task presentation in the text. And the software implementation of the electronic textbook. Electronic textbooks software is a web application that has client-server architecture, and the server part of the application runs under the control of a web server and provides the user with the internet using a web browser. The technological requirements for the electronic training manual software are reduced to the requirements for developing a software environment that provides the task solution of the programming algorithms for solving mathematical problems. The first one is authorized access to education information, then system administration, and effective development of information resources by users. Also, methodological requirements are providing access to education materials using the internet, provision of copyright for user-created electronic learning resources, accumulation in the database of the system of education information resources in the format of IMS standard, and they import and export. Also providing group work in the network, informing users about the course and the results of education process, and dissemination or distribution of education material. Also, there are many software and hardware requirements for design and development of the e-textbook software, and we see on the slide requirements for functional characteristics and our software tool fully provides system administration, user authorization, creation of copyright electronic educational resources, study groups, learning process management, saving and statistical process, testing of learning outcomes, learning results. Requirements also, we analyze requirements for individual modules. You see on the slide the software model and authorization and security system, the software product. It is SQL, Microsoft SQL Server database. The software module is specialized rich editor for the document education electronic resources. The software module is a library of mathematical tasks. Also, software module is a system of learning process managing. And also the software module is automated system for checking and verification of new authorized educational electronic resources. The modeling and software design. The requirements for the e-text, electronic textbook software used in the design of the software for the web application, mathematical tasks, programming. So on this slide we see client-server architecture of the web application, mathematical task programming. Client computer and web server computer, how they connect. Browser plugins provides content management on site pages in a web browser, and these software modules include text book in a hypertext format, a rich editor for entering and editing conditions of mathematical problems, instructions for task solving, and algorithm in the form of program code. Server plugins handle client requests and interactions with the database and file storage, and also these models include parser of client request processing, the model for generating queries to the database, processing or receive data from the database, module of file storage, data managing, and module of verifying the code of solving mathematical task algorithm created by the user. And the web server software handles HTTP client requests and generates data for the user interface. Next. So you see user interface. The user of electronic training manual uses web browser to work with it, which is accessed through the authorization module. And the web browser plugins are implemented in JavaScript using the Angular, JS, and jQuery libraries. Also, JSON and XML were used as a textual data exchange format. So this figure shows us a schematic diagram of electronic textbook homepage. Then the next one. A user interface main page. We see user interface main page. The choice of teaching language determines the language of the software interface, including the textbook and the math task editor. The choice of the programming language determines the language of the programming code in the algorithm of mathematical task solving by clicking the textbook link. The user enters a page of displaying electronic education resources. And the electronic education resources interface allows the user to select a mathematical task for its algorithmic solution in the format of the program code in the selected programming language. The user has the opportunity to solve independently the selected task with subsequent verification of correctness of the solution. And also, the user can call the author solutions to the task and compare it with our solution. And also, we have following the link task editor. The teacher has the opportunity to develop their own author education, electronic education resources in the template of the name and formulation of mathematical task, instruction for task solving, and algorithm for task solving in the form of program code. In this case, a specialized rich editor is used, adapted to the syntaxes of the programming languages Pascal, C++, and Python. Approbation in the education process. The expert method was implied to assess the prospects for the web application using mathematical task programming in education process. 12 experienced teachers of mathematics of secondary schools in Kherson were interviewed. They answered the questionnaire, and a 5-point Likert system was chosen for the assessment. And this table shows the results of the education electronic resources assessment according to the indicators of its use. So you see evaluation options and grade. Then the expert assessment of the quality and prospects of using education resources is considered quite reliable with a good agreement of expert assessment. Also, for the statistical processing of the results of expert assessments included the analysis of the consensus of experts, and the concordance method was used to assess the degree of expert agreement on the options for the assessment. And their hypothesis about the consistency of expert assessment was confirmed by the Pearson criterion. One is conclusions and outlook. So the analysis of education literature showed that there are practically no thematic collections of tasks with the following characteristics. The collection of tasks is presented as an internet resource. The collection task is devoted to the programming of mathematical tasks and is an elementary introduction to computer algebra. Also, the task of the main section of the collection are presented as task, instruction for the solution, and source code of the solution program. Then the collection of tasks supports the most common programming languages in sport programming, Pascal, and C++ and Python, and also the collection of tasks uses three languages, Ukrainian, English, and Russian. And methodological software and hardware requirements for the electronic textbook have been developed. Also, created and tested in the education process, a textbook is a web application built on a client-server architecture. So, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Olga.
Okay.
Anyone have?
Yeah, I have a question. And can we use this electronic textbook like a self-study without teacher, just without any knowledge of math, programming? Just I open this book and can I use it like for myself?
Oh yeah, I see. This maybe this book is this electronic book is maybe for Olympic, for trading Olympic tasks. And if you are interested in doing Olympiad in mathematics and programming, so you can use.
But I have no background, for example. I have no
you
background. I
have
don't know
background.
nothing about programming, nothing about the language of programming, nothing about
No, maybe no. No. It is for school children who studied programming in school, and also maybe students of the first and the second course.
Yes, usually a task book contains only list of tasks and
Yeah,
so
only list.
that's right.
Okay, so
It is not a test book. It is not a stamp.
Manual guidance.
Yes.
It is just
okay.
you can solve the tasks for preparing for.
So I need special background.
Yeah,
for this.
yeah. You need a special background. You need a special study in mathematics.
May I ask?
Yeah.
Could you please repeat the main concept of STEM education in Ukraine?
Okay. This is slide 2. Yeah. It's not on the second.
Не запомнил, не запомнил.
Yeah. This is a factor in the developed state is constantly growing shortage of high-tech specialists capable of complex scientific and engineering activities, and also a decrease in student interest in studying natural and mathematical disciplines.
Thank you, Emma.
Can electronic textbooks replace the paper textbooks in the future, or paper will always be relevant?
So I think that paper book should be more, it will be very relevant in future, but electronic textbook will help us to solve this one. Will help students to solve tasks in mathematics and for preparing for Olympiad tasks, and also our textbooks, our program, our software has an opportunity to make solution of the task in this program, and also it checks it and also give the result. So it's very convenient for student to see his or her mistakes and do this task once more time.
And we plan to make this system open for adding additional resources. Anyone.
There was a question in the chat. Something went wrong. Сообщение не сохранилось. Там было что-то о базе данных, я точно не помню.
Да.
Типа.
Could you write down?
Ask them.
Ask the
That
question.
is.
Okay. Можно? На экран.
Сейчас.
Dear colleagues, I have a question. What database management system was used?
Database.
Management system.
Microsoft Management Studio we used for creating and work with database.
Not MySQL. SQL not?
Sorry?
SQL.
This is SQL database. MS Microsoft SQL server. And
Thank you.
and Management Studio was used for release database.
May I also ask a question?
Yes.
First of all, I would like to say that I very much appreciate the presentation. And as far as I see, there is this software which where programming environments are embedded into this software. And you may not only just input the programming code, but also execute it to get the result and get maybe some estimation of this result in this system. So I see that this is maybe it is called the electronic textbook, but in real it is maybe learning management system.
Yeah, LMS,
Yes, some maybe new kind of this, because this also includes all stages of the process of learning of task solving. I think this is very interesting, very useful. As for me, I don't remember the kind of such system in some other platforms. So I think this is really very effective tool. And for what disciplines and for what levels of learning do you use it in Kherson University?
Some questions, different questions. First question about system management. System management, all this
management system.
Now existing version deal with task formulation task hints and code that user make in environment on computer of user, not system.
Not in the
not system. But next version we plan to make to introduce compilation of code and possibilities to verify code in this system.
Inside this system.
Yes.
I think this is very specific feature, because I had a lot of talks with programming teachers, and I was interested in this question. Is it possible to embed the programming environment into the learning system? But still everybody answered that they embed only the code of the program and it is executed in another software. So this is
there is one general problem.
Mhm.
We may use only open source.
yes.
Free-
This is
free
also
for-
the problem.
Yes.
This is also the problem. But you see, I think that for education, this is important and modern question, because now the learning systems are so diverse and there are a lot of possibilities, and it is technically possible to make this the whole process in one environment. That's why the problems of integration and just unification, these problems are maybe these problems came to the fore, I think.
Many years ago, we would make some programming system algorithm of sort and searching the video in the interpreter, and the same problems opened in this system. We solve it in such way linked to system of programming. That's all.
And that's all I see. But
may have installation.
I see. So you simply give a link and then pass over to that software, and there is nothing difficult in this. But you see, sometimes when we build integrated environments, maybe cloud-based, these problems of synchronization become crucial, because you should to have a lot of passwords. You see, to use this problem, there is one password for this problem, for this, and the system becomes rather complicated. And that's why I think that this smooth integration becomes very interesting. It becomes more user-friendly interface, and more maybe for students it will look nice. You see, so I think it is very interesting tendency just to integrate, to make such integrative systems that will be very much powerful instrument. I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have end of our program, but we have proposed
to add our report
of Yulia and Marie Shishkinai about teams that will be interesting for our audit. Yes.
Thank you. Maybe now our.
Okay, so I've heard reports here about different systems, how platforms, and we decided to check what is the effectiveness and feasibility of all these platforms. And I would like to know. Please open my presentation.
Yes.
Okay. And we would like to investigate this from students' point of view, because of course we are teachers. Our task to give you knowledge, more and more knowledge, and more information. And what is the feedback? And we decided. Okay. Up and down, up and down. So we know that ICT tool developers, they create programs, then we teachers use it, and our students like laboratory rabbits. And so, it will be interesting to know to know your opinion and receive feedback. Is it useful? What problems do you have? What difficulties? How can we resolve all these difficulties? And we gather these results, and I hope ICT tool developers and teachers, of course, teachers, they hear us and they can improve their system, and teachers can improve their methods of teaching to improve the quality. So. Okay, so they have mentioned that we have such a problem, a lot of platforms and teachers and students. And so our task, of course, as teachers, is to improve the effectiveness of studying, of learning process. And I have already mentioned the aim of our research. We can just move further. The methods. So first of all, theoretical analysis. What now we have in our Ukrainian learning environment. So what platforms are very popular, what applications are used in learning environment. Then we systematization of education experience, and of course it includes the survey questionnaire. We interview students, and we decided to combine our questionnaire in such a way that to see this problem from different aspects. First of all, transition to entirely distance learning, the role of teacher in distance learning, by the way, the role of teacher. Maybe we don't. Maybe our modern educational system. Maybe we don't need a teacher because everything we can find online. Or what is the role of teacher? So we decided to find out this question. Next is the influence of distance learning format on the education quality. So I mean academic integrity, understanding, perception of material, and difficulties and challenges, and also difficulties from psychological point of view. So I have been mentioned. And we interviewed 222 students from Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, Boris Khrushchenko Kyiv University, and our lovely Kherson State University, and the National University of Life, Environment, Sciences of Ukraine. And the main online learning platforms which are used by the survey participants were Microsoft Teams, Moodle, and Zoom. And as a result, the first point, the transition to entirely distance learning. We have, at the beginning of our survey, we have such a fear that students would answer, oh, we don't need a teacher, we would like to have only distant learning and anything else. But as a result, we saw that only 23.5% of students answered that distant learning is the best system in the world, as they don't need any teachers and anything else. But most students decided that a blended, mixed learning is the best system of education. What is your opinion?
I think blended is rather good for SOE, because one time I need to sleep more, and then I have pairs online, and then if I'm in the mood to engage with people, I can have offline, and it's useful when you work part-time, and maybe sometimes you can save your time and everything.
Okay, so you see, in class learning, only 11.8%. And now I would like to ask you, your point of view. In class learning, only in class learning, only. Wow. Okay, blended learning. And this only distance learning without. No. Okay. So, next, the role of teacher, the role of educator in distance learning. And and we see that all our fear, so that we shouldn't have fear because 86.3% of respondents consider that distance learning can be effective only under the teacher's mentorship. And by the way, do you need a teacher's mentorship during your distance learning?
Yes.
And who doesn't need? Okay. Next. And also we ask about practical work and theoretical material. And this is the results that we have approximately the same results. So 39.2% prefer to work in pairs with the teacher, practical work. So they need mentor support. And only 19.6% of students said that they could perform practical tasks using theoretical materials and they don't need any teachers. Okay, and for mastering theoretical material, we see that 37.3% prefer to work with a teacher, and only 17.6% admitted that they could work individually. So altogether, we gather this data, and we see that 82.4% of students would rather collaborate with the teacher. Hallelujah. Okay. So, about consultations. So we see, I don't like to read my slide. You can see all numbers here. So, hallelujah again. Students need our help. 78%. Okay. And then was the question of academic integrity, because of course distance learning, it's like a temptation for cheating, just to write down answers without doing exercises, and so it is really a problem. But we see that 47.1% yes, it's possible. Distance learning gives an opportunity to cheat and for academic integrity and not to be very honest during learning. And 6% said that it depends on the students. And 45.1%, by the way, it's a good result, said that no, if distance learning organized correctly, it doesn't give any possibility to cheat. And your opinion?
I agree. Yes, maybe it's true, but it also depends on the student, because if you know your subject well, you don't have to cheat, and if you are honest enough, you also try to study and learn everything, and maybe if you want to have some rest or sleeping off, then you choose.
One question. Let's be honest. Of course, there are such situations when we have any other way, only but cheat and to use paper of your group mates? In what cases, what situation push you, what situation influence on your decision to cheat?
As for me, for the first variety, I had to cheat, for example, on a grammar period. When I had just a huge amount of work and I had no time to run it.
I feel busy next. But you see, we have not better result because on average 42% of students believe that distance learning predominantly creates conditions for academic dishonesty, that students will certainly enjoy in the future. But 45% considered it unacceptable to engage in plagiarism or other types of academic dishonesty. I think it's a good result. So, and the most common difficulties. And of course, I would like to mention the psychological difficulties, because when students receive much, not many, much, a lot of tasks and exercises, it's impossible to cope with all this workload. And of course, you have no way, you have no choice just to cheat. So that's why we recommend teachers, please, you should be very attentive to your home task. You shouldn't give students huge books, huge paragraphs to read by themselves, because they have not only your subjects, they have other subjects. I'm a good teacher. So. Okay, but it was very surprised. I was very surprised when I saw that the most number of problems, technical, lack of reliable high-speed internet, difficulties in registering on the, it was, wow, really? It's the same reaction. And 9.6 said the teachers gave a lot of assessments that must be done in a short time. Yeah, it's true. It's impossible. And 7.6 commented on an inconvenient schedule of classes. Inconvenient. And 11.5 complained about vague instructions and complex material. Do we have such an experience? Wait, we don't understand these instructions.
Sometimes, but it happens rarely. Most
Okay.
times we understand what we have to do.
You may ask, you know, that I always, do you have any questions? Please ask your questions right now. And in 1, 3, or 5 days, what shall we do? Why didn't you ask questions? Okay, next. And only 26.9% stated they had no difficulties. Happy students.
Yeah.
Maybe they are not. Maybe they are not students. Just they just lie. Okay. And about psychological problems, please, dear teachers, don't use distance learning as a platform of like self-educated for students. It's difficult for them because they have not only your subject, they have a lot of subjects, and each teacher thinks that his or her subject is very important. So you should dose your workload. Of course, we have some temptation to keep more and more and more and more. Okay, you should control yourself. So, and for example, some of the answers. When I don't communicate with other people for a long time, I become less motivated to learn. So this is a problem of communication, because distance learning, especially for the students of the forest course, they would like to socialize, they would like to communicate, to see each other, to meet each other, to put on a nice dress, and high heels, girls, and they sit at home, and of course it's a psychological problem of socializing. So, and how many? 58% about socializing is like a problem. Staying at home 24/7 has negative effect on my thinking, behavior, and emotions, stress, and social isolation. Lack of social interaction. I spend half of the day attending online classes, the other half doing homework on my own. This is students' answers. It's not my plot. 24/7 at home without seeing people, without having rest, etc. Okay. This is for teachers. And the recommendations, I already mentioned, so please balance workload. And I think that it's a future like recommendation. We should develop maybe a common platform for university to coordinate different seminars and tests inside of the university, because sometimes they have 2 or 3 seminars per day, or a Monday seminar, Tuesday seminar, Wednesday seminar, and it's impossible to be well prepared for all these seminars. So you like a recommendation to coordinate your work with other teachers, with other subjects. Okay. Ray, maybe you would like to add something about recommendation.
Maybe at the end, after the presentation, we will discuss. We have one more slide, I think.
Yeah, I would like to read the slide. Everybody can read. So, and we also mentioned about drug side of digitalization. Lack of in-person communication, socialization, psychological consequences, and of course psychological consequences negatively affect on the learning process, motivation, and academic integrity too.
Really, we considered our 4 groups of indicators, and really there are recommendations just to overcome some problems, but still you see that as maybe our opinion is that the old and in the same time very modern idea of blended learning still
live forever.
Yes, live forever, yes.
Okay, and I think that's all. And if you have questions, we are glad. Don't hesitate. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. You may ask.
Maybe one more addition, maybe one more point to add, that we didn't consider here the special features of different ICT and technological aspects of this process. But I think the sphere of research is rather wide. And of course, every instrument and technology needs their own investigation of the possible income, pedagogical income, and effect of its introduction. And that's why I think we would continue these investigations just for maybe some special tools of learning. And now when we work in a situation of distant learning, which is going on in such a massive scale, we have real opportunity to make experiments, to test the real outcome of our educational introductions into the learning process. That's why this is really the chance, and our investigation is only the first step. When we tried to do it just to consider the students' response, and first of all, we decided that let us ask them about the most basic factors, and to ask them the first basic questions. Do you like this form of education? How do you how do you do your practical works, your theoretic material, and everything, but the most basic questions. But I think we may continue this investigation, and in the area of our workshop, we would support such ideas that if it will be submitted for us, just with introduction of new distant learning technologies and its empirical investigations.
Thank you. I will have proposed. Now we have 5 minutes before next session, and I propose you to stay on this session, and after this coffee break, you can we can communicate with Yulia and Maria. They are specialists in computer linguistics, and you may interest. This is true. This is true.
Specialist in communication, I already mentioned that psycholinguist, and of course I work in some way with artificial intelligence program, but it's a good specialist computer linguistics. Okay,
And you can discuss some questions. Okay. Now 5 minutes of space.
personal space.
Yes.